Planet Zoo is confirmed to have another year of support ahead of it thanks to yearly reports, and at this current moment we are very close to the next pack. This of course leaves us with one big question: what can we expect from Planet Zoo in 2023? So in this video, like I've done in previous years, I'll be attempting to answer that question through my own wishlist and speculation. However, because nowadays it's quite hard to predict the new pack themes, new features, and the DLC pattern, we're going to be mostly talking about the animals in this video. We're going to be going through roughly 50 plus animals that we could see added this year, and then afterwards talk a bit about the next pack. Now before we get into the animal wish list, please know that this list is a big mixture of popularly requested animals, groups of repeating animals, and of course some animals that I personally want. And know that this list is solely focusing on habitat animals, as it's just really difficult to predict new exhibit animals. One more thing to know is that this list is organized by an animal's likeliness to be added this year. It was the best way for me to organize such a large, diverse mixture of animals, and so we'll be going through them in order of what I consider to be very likely, possible, and unlikely animals, and within each group the animals are in no particular order, it's all random. So now with all that being said, let's get into it. The Tasmanian devil has been my most requested animal for a long time, as it has with many people, and while I am surprised it was omitted from last year, rest assured there will be a day we finally get the devil in Planet Zoo. It's just a matter of time. I have a sneaking suspicion that the Fusa will be a surprise fan favorite addition this year. They are a popularly requested animal and pose an interesting challenge for Frontier. This seemingly cat-like animal is not a cat at all, and so I'm very curious to see if Frontier will just blatantly reuse the cat rig or go about it in a completely different way. We are very likely to get coati-mundis this year, but the question remains, which species of coati would we end up getting? For me it comes down to two major choices, the classic South American coati or the white-nosed coati. Nonetheless, a coati of any kind would make an awesome addition to Planet Zoo. A large part of me wants to believe that the Wolverine still has a good chance of getting added, but there have been numerous packs over the past couple years where this animal could have been included, but has yet to see the light of day. I do think there's still enough demand and interest in this animal, and so for all we know, 2023 could finally be the Wolverine's big break. An animal I've seen grow in popularity recently, porcupines are likely to grace the game's roster in the near future, with it most likely being the more popular crested porcupine, or African crested porcupine as they're known, but that doesn't mean there aren't other options out there. I personally would be just as happy to see the Brazilian porcupine get added to Planet Zoo. It's pretty funny we still don't have the long-awaited dromedary camel, and it'll only get funnier as time goes on. It's not like Frontier isn't aware of them, and it's not like people don't want the most popular species of camelid in the game, but really it seems to be just a big coincidence that we still don't have them. So will 2023 finally change that? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. This is a big one for me. I really want to see Planet Zoo get more New World primates this year, and I know I'm not the only one. I love Planet Zoo's capuchin monkey, but it just does not fulfill the New World primate niche. We are left not only wanting, but needing bigger, more popular, more deserving species of New World primates for our South American sections. Primates such as spider monkeys, howler monkeys, or even squirrel monkeys. Especially with the recent addition of brachiation, I think our chances of getting spider monkeys in Planet Zoo is better than ever. It's an animal that I would love to see added to the game. Our final animal for the very likely category, the Red River Hog, is an animal I would be incredibly surprised if we didn't get. This animal is popular enough, iconic enough, and has waited long enough to be added that I'm honestly expecting to see it any day now. Tree kangaroos are in the likely category and not the very likely category because of the limitations I think they propose. It would be a very tough animal to animate in my opinion, especially because of their long droopy tail that gets dragged wherever they go. But regardless of its limitations, they're definitely a popular enough choice and would make an epic addition to the game, whether it be the Machis or Goodfellows. Being someone that is desperate for any new animals from Oceania, I would love to see some proper New Zealand wildlife in the North Island brown kiwi. The game itself is so desperate for birds of any kind, even new terrestrial birds, that getting such a unique species of flightless bird would be incredible in my opinion. Of all the different niche animal groups in this game, from felines to canines to ungulates to crocodilians, it kinda surprises me that bears of all groups have gotten such a small amount of attention post-launch. Of course, the polar bear and sun bear made great additions to the game, but I honestly think it's time we're due for a new bear species, and I think the most likely option would be the spectacled bear. Another animal that has grown in popularity, Hamadryas baboon could be a fan favorite choice for the game, mostly due to their iconic look, looking somewhat like they have a powdered wig on their head and an urge to write a declaration. Although the game doesn't really need a third rhino species, I know many people still want to see the iconic black rhinoceros join Planet Zoo, ultimately giving it a spot on the list. This is a personal favorite for me, but when I had seen a Sichuan takin in person for myself, I found it to be an incredibly unique, large, and beautiful ungulate that I think would make an amazing addition to Planet Zoo. Just hear me out, but I believe that we are likely to receive just one more crocodilian. This is a group of animals that Frontier clearly likes to make, and although we arguably have enough of them now, there is one particular niche that has yet to be filled, and that is of the game's lack of African crocodilians. If we were to get one more crocodile, then it needs to be one from Africa, with some potential options being dwarf crocodiles, slender snouted crocodiles, or the classic Nile crocodile. Similar to the takin, Markhors would make a very unique addition to the Asian ungulate variety in this game, looking somewhat like a very wise and ancient creature. I know many players would love to have these guys in their zoos. If Frontier is going to continue to give us new cats, then they need to continue exploring the smaller cat variety. That applies to both obscure choices and popular choices like the ocelot. Similar to the wolverine in more ways than you know, the honey badger has had multiple opportunities to join the game, with packs such as the Africa pack or Grasslands Animal pack, but has yet to be added. I do think enough people want it and that it still has a good chance, so hopefully one day we can see it join the game. The game already has 2 otters, and to some people that might be enough, but to everyone else with common sense, there is no such thing as too many otters. I'm teasing, of course, but I do think it makes a lot of sense to get sea otters sooner than later to sort of round out the otter niche in Planet Zoo. We currently have the world's smallest and largest river otters in game, so might as well do the one sea otter while you're at it. Just like the otter, there is no such thing as too many penguins. Although the game doesn't need any more, I think it would be really great just to get at least one more, and it pretty much comes down to 2 big options. Either we get another warm-climated penguin, such as the little blue penguin, or another Antarctic penguin like the Gentoo penguin. They both would make great additions to the game, and it's hard to say which one would get added, so I'll just say I hope they both get added.
Sloths find themselves in the possible category because the demand is there, however, the mechanics may not be. Anyone who's been playing Planet Zoo long enough has at some point in time wondered why Planet Zoo doesn't have sloths, then recognizes their limitations and realizes why we don't have sloths, and then tries to think of ways on how Frontier could give us sloths. But the truth is, we'll never get the answer to this question until Frontier themselves decide to take a leap of faith and give us sloths in the best way they think is possible. But I will say, with their recent interest in trying new things with the exhibits, maybe it's possible we could see a sort of sloth-style exhibit this year, or maybe they'll just find a way to make them regular habitat animals, or maybe they'll just never do them. Only time will tell. I never really see people talk about the game getting another habitat lizard to join the Komodo dragon and Nile monitor, but I think it would be a very worthwhile addition. The game is in need of more lizards anyway, so animals like the Parenti would make a great choice. Surprisingly enough, this is the only canine on the entire list, and it's not even your quote-unquote typical canine. The bush dog is one of South America's hidden gems that I know a lot of zoo enthusiasts would love to have in Planet Zoo, but I will say I think the game has reached a point now where there are no obvious canines left for Frontier to do. When writing out the list, I honestly couldn't think of any standout options other than them just doing more foxes or more wolves, and the bush dog wasn't even an obvious choice until I had to remind myself they existed. Of course, I'd love to have more canines like bat-eared foxes, jackals, or Mexican gray wolves, but none of these I think are popular enough or needed enough to be added, so it will be really interesting to see which canines Frontier do this year, if any at all. I would love to see palace cats in Planet Zoo. Even though I think their chances aren't too high, I bet they would be a fan favorite addition, mostly due to their goofy, pissed off looking faces, and because of how different they are compared to the other cats in game. Once more, just like the otters and penguins, the game doesn't need a third pinniped, but I think it would be great to have one. I believe the chances of us getting another penguin or otter are bigger than a pinniped, but there are still some good options out there, such as the Pacific walrus, brown fur seal, or harbor seal. I don't know what it is, but a part of me really believes this is an animal Frontier would choose. I think it's most likely because of their growing popularity in the online presence, just like the proboscis monkey, which is another primate they chose, most likely because of their popularity on the internet. That, and it's just a really beautiful primate that would help build Central Asia's roster. Maybe I'm just kidding myself here, but I think these guys actually have a decent chance of getting added to Planet Zoo. As I had said before, I believe it's time for us to get a new bear species, and I do think the most likely option is the spectacled bear, but if for whatever reason they chose to do a different species, I think the sloth bear would be the best alternative. Talks of muskox joining Planet Zoo have bounced around now for quite a while, pretty much ever since the Arctic pack, and it's hard to say if we'll ever get it, but who knows, maybe one day we'll get a tundra animal pack. Like the Pallas cat, I would love to see sandcats in Planet Zoo, however I don't feel their chances are too good, but then again they do have a notable appearance in captivity and could see themselves as a surprise addition in a desert pack. One hill I am willing to die on until the end of Planet Zoo's existence is the fact that the game needs more terrestrial birds. Especially if the game isn't to get free-flying birds, then we should at least have a larger collection of terrestrial birds. Even just a second species of crane would do wonders for the game, such species as gray-crowned cranes, blue cranes, or whooping cranes. With only 30 to 90 wild individuals and around 2,000 in captivity, the Addax could serve itself as another conservation-focused animal addition for the game. I could totally see us getting these beautiful ungulates in a desert pack. One of my biggest ones this year is that Frontier finally gives us some smaller ungulates. This is a niche group of animals that I feel has always been underrepresented, and so for the rest of this video, we'll be looking at a variety of small to medium ungulates that could potentially join the game. And what better place to start than with the classic Reeves Muntjac of Asia. Of the three bears we're looking at in this video, the American black bear definitely has the smallest chance of getting added, mostly because we already have two North American bears, and because the other two bears we've looked at in the video are arguably more unique and more desired. Regardless, the American black bear is a popular species of bear and found in most American zoos, definitely making it a possible animal at the least. Planet Zoo already has a crane, so why not give us a stork? Storks would add another great addition to the terrestrial bird roster, and I think we're long overdue for one. Some notable species are the shoebill stork, the marabou stork, and the saddle-billed stork. Another smaller to medium-sized ungulate, the lowland anoa, is an animal I've actually seen a lot of talk about recently, mostly in regards to the idea of an islands pack, and not only that, but going off some of the choices they made last year, I feel like this is an animal Frontier would consider. Unfortunately, we did not end up getting the iconic secretary bird in the Grasslands animal pack, and while I do think its chances of being added have been hurt a bit, I still hold hope that we could see this awesome bird join the Planet Zoo roster one day. Not a pig surprisingly, but actually a part of its own family, the collared peccary could see its inclusion in a potential desert pack, and if not that, well then I'm just not sure, ultimately making it a possible inclusion. A part of me really believes we're going to get echidnas one day, mostly because they're iconic to Australia, and as of recently Frontier have been trying to round out Australia, but also because rounding out the monotremes seems like something Frontier would want to do. However, because I hardly see people talk about them, I ultimately chose to put them in the possible tier. The third smaller to medium-sized ungulate now, a species of duiker, is something I could see the game getting. Between the yellowback duiker, or blue or black duikers, I think they all have a decent chance of getting added, as duikers appear quite regularly in zoos worldwide. Last animal for the possible tier, and similar to the echidna, tanukis are a group of animals I hold a lot of hope that we could see added to the game one day, but because I hardly see people talk about them, I have ultimately chosen to put them in the possible tier. Originally, I did have the European bison in the possible category, but after having given it more thought, I've come to realize that the wisent just doesn't have as good of a chance as I thought it did. It's visually too similar to the American bison and far less popular. There's far less demand for this animal and less of a need to have it now that Europe has had a lot more life added to it. There's still a small possibility we could see them in Planet Zoo, but I wouldn't count on it. As I had said before, I believe the game is in need of more lizards and reptiles in general, which includes new turtles and tortoises. And although I'm sure most people wouldn't care too much for a new large habitat tortoise, I personally would love to see the world's third largest tortoise join the game. Continuing with the medium to small ungulates, we are now getting into the just plain small ones. The Kirkdikdik is an animal that actually has a small history with Planet Zoo. It was once mistaken to be a part of the launch game by a gaming article, only for that to not be true, making its small but potential inclusion kind of ironic. Because we now have caracals in Planet Zoo, I don't see the serval having a good chance of getting added, as they're both a little too similar and fill the same niche, but they are a popular cat that may still be considered one day. Another smaller ungulate similar to the Kirkdikdik and probably fighting for that same small African hoofed animal spot, the Klipspringer is an animal that I think would make a great addition to the game, as I personally have seen them in quite a lot of American zoos. It would be great if Frontier wanted to fill out the rat-type roster in Planet Zoo, but I just don't see us getting Rheas. They're a cool enough bird, but not popular enough, and if we're to get one more rat-type, it's more likely to be the Kiwi. Second to last smaller ungulate, and one of the cuter ones in my opinion, Southern Poodoo would add a sort of obscure animal niche to the game that I think many zoo enthusiasts would appreciate, but that same reason is why we'll probably never see it added. Not quite done with the turtles and tortoises yet, I think alligator snapping turtles would add an incredible habitat animal for the game. It would be awesome to see these huge turtles climb their way into the ponds you build for them, but unfortunately I just don't see Frontier adding them. The final smaller ungulate, and another cute one in my opinion, a species of mouse deer would add a very unique addition to the game that I just don't feel Frontier will go for. This is mostly because there are more popular choices that we've looked at in the video, but hey, they were still worth mentioning nonetheless. With the game already having 3 lemurs, I think we'd be very lucky to get a Cockerel Shifaka added, which is why it's ultimately an unlikely addition, still a super cool animal that I know many Zabumafu fans would love to have. Saiga antelopes simultaneously feel like an animal Frontier would love to add, but also totally disregard at the same time. These are such unique looking animals that I know many players would love to have, but because of their conservation status as well as their lack of presence in zoos, they ultimately have an unlikely chance of ever getting added to Planet Zoo. Finishing up the animal wish list with an out-of-nowhere, very hopeful but very unlikely addition, sea turtles would be a dream come true in this game, but without the addition of a proper marine expansion, I just don't see it happening. However, a community can dream, which is why I ultimately chose to end the list with them. Alright everyone, that is it for my animal wish list, but before we end the video, let's talk a little bit about what the next pack could be. The next pack, the 13th pack, should be getting announced on March 21st and should be launching on April 4th. That April 4th is of course the Tuesday before Easter Sunday, which is the date they always do every year. They always have the pack, the springtime pack, quote unquote, they always have it launch on the Tuesday before Easter Sunday, so April 4th is what we're looking at this year, and that's actually not too far away, so we're pretty close. However, what is this next pack? Well, it's really hard to say. We really don't know what kind of theme, which isn't a surprise, but we don't even know what exactly the formula would be. See, we just had an animal pack, so are we going to get a scenery pack, or are they going to finally do animal packs back to back? We really don't know. I think it is more likely to be a scenery pack, again because we just had an animal pack, and I don't think they're going to ever do animal packs back to back, primarily because that's just too much time without new scenery. So I think we're looking at a traditional 5 animal scenery pack this spring, or well, very soon I should say. As far as what that theme is though, it's very hard to say. It really is. I mean, at this current moment, we've gone pretty much a whole year now of unsuspected themes, right? We went from wetlands theming to conservation theming to crepuscular theming to grasslands theming in just last year, so it's pretty hard to say what we could expect this year. It could be anything. There is a lot of talk about the potential idea of an islands pack being made, which would actually fit the time of the year and would actually be a pretty solid pack. I think an Islands pack would work as a scenery pack. There's just enough animals out there, enough interesting animals like Tasmanian devils, fusas, kiwis, tree kangaroos, and the lowland of Noah, as I had mentioned in the wish list. All these animals could be in an a Islands pack. So I think there's a lot of talk about that. And as far as scenery goes, I don't know what exact scenery you could pull from an Islands pack. It kind of depends, but it could function as a scenery pack and could be the next DLC. I also personally think there's a good chance of them doing a petting zoo pack. It's, again, springtime, and spring is usually where life is kind of flourishing or waking up, so it would kind of make sense to do a sort of agricultural themed petting zoo pack. That's always been a very long awaited one. And if not those two, then it honestly could be anything else. Some people will suggest birds, some people will say it could be just a regular animal pack, another environmental themed animal pack. There's no exact way to know for sure. It's going to be something unexpected most likely, because that's just how it's been for a long time now. I personally am really looking forward to finding out, as it's always a surprise nowadays. With all that being said, there is something that we should all keep in mind about this next pack. It is always around this time of the year that Frontier tries something new. If we go all the way back to the South America pack, from that point on all the way up until last year, they have tried something new with every quote-unquote springtime pack. So, for example, with the South America pack, that was the very first pack to give us a post-launch exhibit animal. It doesn't seem like a really big thing, and it isn't, because in the end, every pack since then has had an exhibit animal. But that was the very first pack to ever give us an exhibit animal, with the red-eyed tree frog. Jump ahead a year, you've got the Southeast Asia animal pack. That was a very new kind of pack. It was the very first animal pack and a pretty specific theme. I don't think anyone was exactly expecting Southeast Asia, but that was definitely something new. It introduced us to animal packs, and ever since then it's honestly a game changer. And then jump ahead to last year, we got the Wetlands animal pack, the very first environment themed pack. So clearly they like to try new things around this time of the year, and I just feel like that's worth keeping in mind. It's fair to assume that the 13th pack, the next DLC, could try something new as well. Maybe some people take that as, hey, maybe we're going to get a whole new formula. Could be something as big as an aviary pack. It could be anything. It really could be. Or it could just be another really average pack, and it doesn't have to be anything special. Maybe they'll break the streak of doing new things every spring. It's possible, but I honestly think that they always go into this time of the year with some attempt at being new, attempt at trying something fresh for the game. So I'm looking forward to seeing what this next pack is, in my personal opinion. But I want to go ahead and say thank you to everyone so much for watching this video. Please let me know in the comments down below which animal are you most looking forward to seeing this year, as well as what you think the next pack is going to be. But I should have some more videos out soon, trying to get back into it. But until then, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.